She walked into the wedding they invited her to as a joke. The entire room went silent, because the woman in the emerald gown wasn't supposed to look like that, wasn't supposed to move like that, wasn't supposed to command attention like royalty. They'd invited the black janitor, someone to laugh at, someone to humiliate. But the woman who stepped through those doors wasn't a janitor anymore. She was someone else entirely. An older man near the entrance stepped forward, his face going completely pale. His hand flew to his chest like he'd just seen a ghost. He opened his mouth, started to say a name, but stopped. His voice caught in his throat like he was afraid to speak it out loud. The bride's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor, because Vivian Ashford had just realized something terrifying. She didn't know who this woman really was. But let's go back to where it all started. 3 days earlier. 3 days earlier. The envelope was cream-colored, thick, expensive, the kind of paper that whispered money before you even opened it. Charlotte Monroe held it between her rough, calloused fingers and stared at the gold lettering embossed across the front. Her name, written in elegant script like she was someone important. For a moment, she almost believed it. Then she remembered who she was, what she did, where she stood in the world. A janitor, not even head janitor, just Charlotte. The woman who scrubbed the executive floors of Belmont Tower every night after the important people went home. The woman who emptied their trash bins, wiped their coffee rings, and picked up their expensive pens when they fell. The woman most of them looked through like she was made of glass. Invisible. That's what she'd become over the past 3 years. A shadow in navy blue scrubs pushing a yellow cart. Background noise. Part of the furniture. So when Vivian Ashford, the CEO's fiancée, walked toward her that Tuesday afternoon with a smile sharp enough to cut glass, Charlotte knew immediately. This was not kindness. Vivian moved like she owned the building. Hell, she moved like she owned the air inside it. Her heels clicked across the marble lobby in perfect rhythm, each step a declaration of superiority. Her friends flanked her on either side. 3 women who looked like they'd been carved from the same expensive mold. Designer handbags, perfect hair, smiles that never quite reached their eyes. Charlotte stepped aside the way she always did, made herself smaller, tried to disappear into the wall. But Vivian stopped right in front of her. Charlotte. Her voice was sweet, poisoned honey. I've been looking for you. Charlotte's grip tightened on the handle of her cleaning cart. Yes, ma'am. Vivian's smile widened. Behind her, one of her friends covered her mouth, suppressing a giggle. I have something for you. Vivian extended the cream envelope with 2 perfectly manicured fingers, holding it out like she was offering a treat to a dog. A personal invitation. Charlotte stared at it. Didn't move. Go on, Vivian urged, her voice dripping with false warmth. Take it. Slowly, Charlotte reached out and accepted the envelope. Felt heavier than it should, like it carried more than just paper inside. It's for my wedding, Vivian continued, her eyes gleaming with something cruel. This Saturday, at the Sterling Rose Estate. You know it, don't you? That beautiful venue overlooking the river. Charlotte knew it. Everyone in the city knew it. It was the kind of place people like her only saw in magazines. I wanted to personally invite you, Vivian said, louder now. A few people in the lobby had stopped to watch. Because I believe everyone deserves to feel included. Even the help. One of her friends snorted. Another turned away, shoulders shaking with laughter. Charlotte's face burned. Her throat tightened. The dress code is black tie, Vivian added, her voice light and casual, like she was discussing the weather. I'm sure you have something appropriate. Or maybe you can borrow something. I know your salary isn't much, but I have faith in you. The laughter was louder now, not even hidden anymore. Vivian leaned in closer, her perfume overwhelming. expensive and suffocating. "It'll be such a beautiful day," she whispered, just loud enough for Charlotte to hear. "And I'd hate for you to miss it. After all, someone needs to remember their place." Then she straightened, flashed that perfect smile, and walked away. Her friends followed, their laughter echoing off the marble walls. Charlotte stood there, frozen, the envelope trembling in her hands. Around her, a few people glanced her way, some with pity, others with amusement. Most just looked away, uncomfortable, pretending they hadn't seen anything. Within seconds, the lobby returned to normal. Conversations resumed. Phones buzzed. Elevators dinged. And Charlotte was invisible again. She looked down at the envelope, at the gold letters, at her name written in that beautiful, mocking script. Her jaw clenched, her hands stopped shaking, and something deep inside her chest, something she thought had died years ago, began to stir. Charlotte didn't open the envelope right away. She shoved it into the pocket of her scrubs and finished her shift. Cleaned the 14th floor, vacuumed the conference rooms, wiped down the glass walls of the executive suites. She worked in silence, her mind elsewhere. By the time she clocked out, the sun had already set. The city lights glittered outside the windows like scattered diamonds. Beautiful, cold, distant. She took the bus home. 45 minutes through traffic, squeezed between a man who smelled like cigarettes and a teenager glued to her phone. Her apartment was small, a studio on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. The paint was peeling. The radiator clanked. The lock on the door stuck every time. But it was hers. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her shoes, and stood in the middle of the room for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the envelope. She turned it over in her hands, studied it, felt the weight of it. Finally, she slid her finger under the flap and tore it open. Inside was a single card, thick, embossed, elegant. "You are cordially invited to the wedding of Vivian Ashford and Benjamin Cross. Saturday, the 18th of November, 5 o'clock in the evening. Sterling Rose Estate. Black tie." Charlotte read it twice. Then she set it down on the small table by the window and walked to the corner of the room where an old wooden trunk sat gathering dust. She hadn't opened it in 3 years, hadn't even looked at it. But now, she knelt down in front of it. Her hands hovered over the lid. For a moment, she hesitated, because opening this box meant opening everything she'd buried, everything she'd tried to forget. Her breath came slow. Then she lifted the lid. Inside were photographs, old ones, faded at the edges but still clear. There was a picture of a woman in her 30s, standing in front of a building with a sign that read Monroe Community Foundation. She was smiling, confident, wearing a tailored suit, her hair styled perfectly. She looked powerful. She looked happy. Charlotte stared at the photograph for a long time, because that woman was her. Beneath the photos was a certificate, yellowed with age but still legible. Charlotte Monroe, founder and executive director, Monroe Community Foundation. Her fingers traced the letters. She pulled out more items. A newspaper clipping. Local philanthropist raises $2 million for youth programs. Another headline. Monroe Foundation opens 3rd education center. There were letters, dozens of them. Thank you notes from families, from students, from people whose lives had been changed. And at the very bottom of the trunk, wrapped in tissue paper, was a necklace, silver, delicate, with a single black stone. Charlotte lifted it carefully, holding it up to the light. Her mother had given it to her the day she opened the foundation. "This is for strength," her mother had said. "For the days when the world tries to break you. You wear this and remember who you are." Charlotte's throat tightened. She hadn't worn it since the day everything fell apart. The day the accusations came. The embezzlement charges, the lawsuits, the lies. Someone had stolen from the foundation, used her name, destroyed everything she'd built. And by the time the truth came out, it was too late. Her parents were gone. Her reputation was ruined. Her savings were drained by legal fees. The foundation closed. And Charlotte Monroe, the woman who had once been on magazine covers, who had shaken hands with senators and CEOs, became a ghost. She'd taken the first job she could find, cleaning, because invisible people don't get asked questions. Invisible people don't have to explain themselves. Invisible people survive. But now, sitting on the floor of her tiny apartment, surrounded by the remnants of her old life, Charlotte felt something shift. She looked at the wedding invitation again, then at the photograph of herself, then at the necklace in her hand. And for the first time in 3 years, she smiled. Not a sad smile, not a broken one, a dangerous one, because Vivian Ashford had made a mistake. She'd invited the wrong woman to humiliate. Charlotte stood slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Then she pulled out her phone, scrolled through her contacts, found a name she hadn't called in years. Her finger hovered over it. Then she pressed dial. The phone rang once, twice, then a voice answered. Shocked, breathless. Charlotte? Is that really you? Charlotte's smile widened. Hello, Simone, she said softly. I need your help, and I think it's time people remembered who I am. Simone arrived the next morning. Not in a taxi, not in an Uber, in a sleek black town car that looked like it cost more than Charlotte's entire year of rent. Charlotte watched from her window as the car pulled up to the curb. The driver got out first, walked around, and opened the back door. And out stepped Simone Laurent. She hadn't changed much. Still tall, still elegant, still moving like the world owed her an apology for existing in her path. Her hair was cut shorter now, sharp and angled. Her coat was camel-colored and probably cashmere. Her sunglasses were oversized and hiding half her face. She looked like money, old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Charlotte opened the door before Simone could knock. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Simone's face crumpled. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Charlotte." She stepped forward and pulled Charlotte into a hug so tight it hurt. Charlotte closed her eyes, let herself be held. "I thought I'd lost you," Simone said, her voice breaking. "I thought you were gone forever." "I was," Charlotte admitted quietly. "For a while." Simone pulled back, holding Charlotte at arm's length, studying her face. "What happened to you?" Charlotte's smile was thin. "Life." Simone's jaw tightened. "Don't give me that. Tell me everything." So Charlotte did. They sat at the small table by the window, and Charlotte told her about the foundation, the accusations, the trial, losing her parents, losing everything. Simone listened in silence, her hands gripping her coffee cup so hard her knuckles went white. When Charlotte finished, Simone set the cup down carefully. "Who did it?" she asked. Her voice was cold, controlled, dangerous. "It doesn't matter anymore," Charlotte said. "They're long gone. The money's gone. It's over. Like hell it's over." Simone leaned forward. "Charlotte, do you know who I am now? What I do?" Charlotte shook her head. "I own 3 fashion houses. I dress senators, celebrities, people who move policy with a phone call." Simone's eyes blazed. "If you want your name back, I can help you get it. But you have to want it." Charlotte was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out the wedding invitation. She slid it across the table. Simone picked it up. "Read it." Her eyebrows lifted. "Vivian Ashford," she said slowly. "Benjamin Cross." She looked up. "You know them." "I clean their offices," Charlotte said. Simone's expression darkened. And they invited you to their wedding? As a joke. Charlotte's voice was flat. To humiliate me in front of everyone. Simone set the invitation down. She leaned back in her chair, and then she smiled. It was the kind of smile that would make smart people nervous. Oh, she said softly. Oh, Charlotte, they have no idea what they've done. Charlotte met her eyes. Can you help me? Simone stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city. Help you? She turned back, her smile widening. Sweetheart, I'm going to make you unforgettable. The transformation began immediately. Simone made 3 phone calls. Within an hour, Charlotte's apartment looked like a fashion studio had exploded inside it. Garment bags, shoe boxes, makeup cases, hair tools, an entire team arrived. Simone's people. A makeup artist named Jules who looked at Charlotte's face like it was a canvas waiting for a masterpiece. A hairstylist named Marco who circled Charlotte slowly, studying the angles of her face, the texture of her hair, muttering in Italian under his breath. And Simone herself standing in the center of it all like a general commanding troops. We have 3 days, Simone announced. 3 days to remind this city who Charlotte Monroe is. She pulled out her tablet and started swiping through images. First, the dress, she said. It needs to be perfect, not flashy, not desperate for attention, just undeniable. She showed Charlotte 3 options. The first was burgundy, deep and rich like wine. The second was champagne, soft and delicate. The third was emerald green, bold but elegant, the color of old money and quiet power. Charlotte's hand moved toward the emerald without hesitation. Yes, Simone said, satisfaction in her voice. That one. It doesn't beg. It commands. Over the next 2 days they worked. Simone had the dress altered to fit Charlotte's body like it had been made for her. Every seam, every line, every stitch adjusted until it was perfect. Marco experimented with different hairstyles. Down, half up, braided, loose. Finally, he settled on an elegant updo, braided and pulled back to show the strong lines of Charlotte's face and neck. This, he said firmly, this says power. This says I know exactly who I am. Jules worked on Charlotte's makeup. Subtle but striking, natural but enhanced. We're not hiding you, Jules explained as she worked. We're revealing you, the you that's been there all along. Charlotte sat through it all quietly, watching herself transform in the mirror, piece by piece, layer by layer, until the woman staring back at her looked like someone she used to know, someone she'd forgotten, someone she was ready to become again. On Friday night, Simone sent everyone home. It was just the 2 of them in Charlotte's small apartment. Are you nervous? Simone asked. Charlotte looked at the dress hanging on the closet door, the emerald fabric catching the dim light. Yes, she admitted. Good, Simone said. That means you care. That means it matters. She sat down beside Charlotte on the bed. Listen to me, Simone said. When you walk into that wedding tomorrow, some people are going to recognize you. Some aren't. Some will whisper. Some will stare. Some will judge. Charlotte nodded. None of that matters, Simone continued. The only thing that matters is that you walk in there knowing who you are. Not who they think you are. Not who they want you to be. Who you actually are. She took Charlotte's hand. You're not doing this for revenge, Simone said. You're doing this for you, to prove to yourself that you survived, that they didn't break you, that Charlotte Monroe is still here. Charlotte squeezed her friend's hand. Thank you, she whispered. Simone smiled. Save your thanks. Tomorrow is when the real work begins. Saturday arrived cold and bright. Charlotte woke before dawn, couldn't sleep, lay in bed watching the sunrise paint her ceiling in shades of pink and gold. By noon, Simone had returned with the team. They worked in focused silence. Hair, makeup, nails, each step deliberate, careful, transforming Charlotte piece by piece. When they finally helped her into the dress, the room went quiet. Charlotte stood in front of the mirror. The emerald dress fit perfectly. It hugged her frame without clinging, flowing like water with every small movement. The color made her skin glow, made her eyes sharp and bright. The necklace her mother had given her rested at the hollow of her throat. Simple, elegant, powerful. Her hair was braided up and back, showing off her face, her neck, her shoulders. She looked regal. She looked strong. She looked like Charlotte Monroe. Simone stood behind her, tears in her eyes. "You look like a queen," she whispered. Charlotte touched the necklace at her throat. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "This is for strength, for the days when the world tries to break you." "I feel like one," Charlotte said softly. The car arrived at 4:30, a black Mercedes, sleek and elegant. The driver opened the door and Charlotte slid into the back seat. Simone leaned in through the window. "Remember," she said, "you don't owe them anything. Not an explanation, not a smile, not a single word. You just walk in, stand tall, and let them wonder." Charlotte nodded. "And Charlotte," she looked up. Simone smiled. "Make them remember who you are." The car pulled away. Charlotte watched the city pass by outside the window. The buildings, the people, the life she'd been invisible in for 3 years. But today she wasn't invisible anymore. Today she was going to be seen. The Sterling Rose estate sat on a hill overlooking the river. It was the kind of place that existed in a different world. White tents, string lights woven through trees, flowers everywhere, spilling out of golden vases like waterfalls of color. Beautiful, expensive, exclusive. Charlotte's car pulled up to the entrance at exactly 5 o'clock. The driver got out, walked around, opened her door. Charlotte stepped out. The late afternoon sun caught the emerald fabric of her dress, making it shimmer like deep water. A few people near the entrance turned to look. Conversations stuttered. Someone whispered something to the person next to them. A photographer lifted his camera instinctively. Charlotte took a breath. Then she started walking. The gravel crunched beneath her heels. She moved slowly, deliberately, each step measured and certain. Not rushing, not nervous, just walking, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. The closer she got to the entrance, the more people turned. Heads swiveled. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Someone asked, "Who is that?" Charlotte didn't look at them. She kept her eyes forward. And when she reached the doors to the ballroom, the attendant opened them without a word. The music swelled. The lights blazed. And Charlotte Monroe stepped inside. The silence that followed was absolute. Charlotte stood at the entrance, the ballroom stretching out before her like a stage waiting for its star. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, casting fractured light across the polished marble floor. Round tables draped in white linen surrounded a central dance floor that gleamed like ice. Floral arrangements taller than most people stood at intervals throughout the room, white roses and orchids spilling from golden vases. Everything was perfect, expensive, and now completely frozen. Charlotte didn't move. Not yet. She let them look, let them wonder, let the question burn through the crowd. Near the champagne tower, Vivian Ashford's hand trembled so badly that liquid sloshed over the rim of her glass and onto her white gown. She didn't notice. Her eyes were locked on Charlotte, wide and disbelieving. This wasn't possible. The janitor, the nobody, The woman she'd invited as a punchline was standing in the doorway, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. One of Vivian's bridesmaids, a woman named Margot, leaned in close. "Is that her?" she hissed. "The cleaning lady?" Vivian couldn't speak. Her throat had closed up completely. Across the room, Benjamin Cross straightened from where he'd been leaning against the bar. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the counter. He stared. He knew that face. Not from the office. Not from the building. From somewhere else. Somewhere important. But he couldn't place it. An older gentleman near the entrance took a step forward. Richard Pemberton, real estate developer. One of the city's most respected businessmen. His face had gone completely white. His hand flew to his chest like he'd just been struck. He opened his mouth, started to say something, a name, but the word caught in his throat, like he was afraid to speak it out loud, like saying it would make something real that couldn't be undone. The silence in the room grew heavier. Vivian's champagne glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered on the marble floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. But Charlotte didn't flinch. She simply smiled, a small, knowing smile, and began to walk. Charlotte's heels clicked against the marble floor in perfect rhythm. Each step was measured, controlled, confident. She didn't look left or right, didn't acknowledge the stares or the whispers rising like a tide around her. She just walked. The emerald dress moved with her like it was part of her, the fabric catching light with every step. Behind her, she could hear the murmurs growing louder. "Who is she? I've never seen her before. Look at that dress. Is she famous? Where do I know her from?" Vivian stood frozen near the champagne tower, her face drained of all color. Her bridesmaids had gathered around her like a protective wall, but none of them knew what to do. Margot grabbed Vivian's arm. "Viv, what's going on? Why are people staring at her like that?" Vivian shook her head mutely. She didn't know. She didn't understand. This was supposed to be funny. This was supposed to be a joke. But nobody was laughing. Charlotte reached the center of the ballroom and stopped. She stood perfectly still, her posture impeccable, her expression calm and unreadable. And she waited. Let them look. Let them wonder. Let the question burn. Richard Pemberton took another step forward. His hands were shaking. "Charlotte?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But in the silence of the ballroom, it carried like thunder. The name hit the room like an explosion. But he didn't finish. Didn't say the last name. Like he was still afraid to believe it. Charlotte turned slowly toward him. For a moment, she just looked at him. Then she smiled. A small, genuine smile. "Hello, Richard," she said. Her voice was warm, clear, carrying easily across the silent room. "It's been a long time." Richard's breath caught. "My God," he whispered. "It is you. You're—" "Yes," Charlotte said softly, cutting him off before he could say more. "It's me." The whispers erupted like wildfire. "Charlotte. Charlotte who? Wait. I know that name. Is that? It can't be. I thought she was." But nobody finished their sentences, because they were all starting to remember, and what they were remembering was making their faces go pale. Vivian felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. No, 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 no. Her knees buckled slightly and Margot had to grab her arm to keep her upright. "Viv," Margot whispered urgently. "Who is she? Why is everyone acting like this?" Vivian's mouth opened but no sound came out, because she was starting to remember too, starting to piece it together. The name Charlotte, the way Richard Pemberton was looking at her like he'd seen a ghost, the way other people in the crowd were starting to lean forward, squinting, recognition dawning on their faces. And suddenly Vivian knew. She knew exactly who this was, and what she'd done. Benjamin appeared at her side, his face hard as stone. "Vivian," he said quietly. His voice was lethal. "Please tell me that's not who I think it is." Vivian couldn't answer. Benjamin's jaw clenched. "Please tell me," he said through gritted teeth, "that you didn't invite Charlotte Monroe to our wedding as a joke." The name, finally spoken in full. Charlotte Monroe. And the room exploded. Gasps erupted from every corner. Monroe. The Monroe Foundation? Charlotte Monroe is alive? I thought she disappeared. Where has she been? Oh my God. That's really her. People were moving now, stepping forward, gathering around Charlotte like she was a magnet pulling them in. Richard Pemberton reached her first. He took both her hands in his, gripping them tightly, his eyes shining with emotion. "Charlotte," he said, his voice thick. "We thought, everyone thought." "I know what everyone thought," Charlotte said gently. "I let them think it." "But why?" Richard looked at her like she was a miracle. "After you were cleared, after the truth came out about the embezzlement, why didn't you come back?" Charlotte's smile turned sad. "Because by the time the truth came out, Richard, there was nothing left to come back to." A woman in her 60s with silver hair pushed through the growing crowd. "Charlotte Monroe," she breathed. "I can't believe it's really you." Charlotte turned. Recognition flickered across her face. "Dr. Reeves," she said softly. "You remember me." Dr. Helen Reeves looked like she might cry. "Of course I remember you," Charlotte said. "You ran the children's hospital. My foundation funded your pediatric wing." "Your foundation saved that wing," Dr. Reeves corrected, her voice fierce. "Do you know how many children got treatment because of you? How many families didn't have to choose between medicine and rent?" Charlotte's throat tightened, but she kept her composure. "That was a long time ago," she said quietly. "Not long enough to forget," Dr. Reeves said. "Not long enough for us to stop missing what you built." More people were joining the circle around Charlotte now. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit stepped forward. "My daughter went to college because of your scholarship program," he said, his voice cracking. "She's a doctor now. Because of you. My neighborhood got a community center," a woman added. "My son learned to read there. You helped my family when my husband lost his job," another voice said. The testimonials came one after another, each person adding their story to the growing chorus. And Charlotte stood in the center of it all, listening, her eyes bright but her tears refusing to fall. Across the room, Vivian watched the scene unfold with mounting horror. This wasn't just a janitor. This was Charlotte Monroe, a woman who had once moved in circles far above Vivian's reach. A woman whose family name still carried weight in this city. A woman whose foundation had changed thousands of lives. A woman Vivian had invited to her wedding as a joke. Benjamin's grip on Vivian's arm was painful. "Do you understand what you've done?" he hissed. "That woman's father built half of this city's infrastructure. Her mother was on the board of every major charity. The Monroe Foundation was legendary. But she's just..." Vivian stopped herself. "Just what?" Benjamin's eyes were cold. "Just our janitor? Is that what you were going to say?" Vivian's silence was answer enough. "You invited Charlotte Monroe to our wedding to humiliate her," Benjamin said. His voice was ice. "You thought it would be funny. You thought she was nobody." "I didn't know," Vivian whispered desperately. "I swear, Benjamin, I didn't know who she was." "That doesn't make it better," Benjamin said. "It makes it worse." He released her arm and walked away. Vivian stood there, alone in her perfect white dress, surrounded by guests who were now completely ignoring her, because all of them were focused on Charlotte, the woman who had stolen Vivian's wedding without saying a word. The ceremony was supposed to start at 5:30. It was now 6:15. Vivian was hiding in the bridal suite, her makeup streaked with tears, her bridesmaids frantically trying to salvage what was left of her composure. "You have to go out there," Margot said desperately. "Everyone's waiting." "I can't," Vivian sobbed. "Did you see them? Did you see the way they looked at her? At me? It'll blow over," another bridesmaid said, but her voice lacked conviction. "No, it won't." Vivian's voice was bitter. "This is going to follow me forever. Everyone's going to know. Everyone's going to remember that I tried to humiliate Charlotte Monroe at my own wedding." "Then don't let them remember that," Margot said firmly. "Go out there. Get married. Show them that this is still your day." Vivian looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her perfect makeup was ruined. Her hair was falling out of its elaborate updo. She looked like a disaster. She felt like one too. But Margot was right about one thing. This was supposed to be her day. Vivian stood up, wiped her eyes, let her bridesmaids fix her makeup as much as they could. Then she walked out of the bridal suite with her head held high and her heart full of rage. The ceremony finally began at 6:30. The guests, still buzzing with conversation about Charlotte, reluctantly took their seats. Charlotte sat in the back row, quiet and composed, her hands folded in her lap. The music started. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle, their smiles forced, their eyes darting nervously toward Charlotte. Then Vivian appeared. She looked beautiful, even with her puffy eyes and forced smile. But there was something brittle about her now, something broken. She walked down the aisle like she was walking to her own execution. When she reached the altar, Benjamin took her hands. But his grip was cold, distant. The officiant began the ceremony. But the words felt hollow, empty. Everyone in the room could feel it. This wasn't a celebration anymore. It was a performance, and not a very good one. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and partnership. But Vivian barely heard him. All she could think about was Charlotte sitting in the back row, watching, judging, winning. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the silence was deafening. Charlotte didn't move, didn't speak. She just sat there watching calmly. The vows were exchanged. Vivian stumbled over hers twice, her voice shaking. Benjamin's were delivered with mechanical precision, like he was reading from a script he didn't believe in. The rings were placed, and when the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was polite but sparse, scattered, obligatory. Vivian and Benjamin kissed, but it felt like obligation, not love, like checking a box on a list, like going through motions because there was nothing else to do. The reception that followed was worse. Vivian's carefully planned seating chart had been abandoned. People moved freely, congregating around Charlotte, asking questions, sharing stories, offering support. Charlotte handled it all with grace. She answered questions honestly but gave little away about her future plans. She accepted compliments with humility. She shared memories of her parents with warmth. And through it all, Vivian watched from her table at the front of the room, feeling like a ghost at her own wedding. At one point, Richard Pemberton stood and clinked his glass. "I know this isn't my place," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "But I have to say something." The room quieted. "Many of you know me, know my work, know my reputation in this city." Richard looked directly at Charlotte. "But what some of you might not know is that 20 years ago, I was on the verge of bankruptcy. I'd made bad investments, lost everything." He paused. "Charlotte's father gave me a chance," he said. "Believed in me when no one else would. Helped me rebuild. Gave me advice. Gave me hope." His eyes were shining. "And the Monroe Foundation supported my daughter's school when the district tried to shut it down. They funded the arts program, the music classes. They gave those kids opportunities they never would have had otherwise." He raised his glass. "The Monroe family changed my life," he said. "Changed this city. And seeing Charlotte here tonight reminds me that good people don't stay down forever." He looked at Charlotte. "To Charlotte Monroe," he said. "Welcome back." The room erupted in applause. People stood, glasses raised, and Charlotte sat there, overwhelmed, her eyes finally spilling the tears she'd been holding back all night. Vivian watched it happen with something cold and bitter churning in her chest. This was supposed to be her moment, her celebration, her day. But Charlotte Monroe had stolen it with nothing but a dress and a name. And the worst part? Charlotte hadn't even tried. She just existed. And that was enough. More people approached Charlotte as the evening wore on. A woman who'd been helped by the Foundation's housing program. A man whose nephew had been mentored through their youth initiative. A teacher whose classroom had been stocked with supplies when the school budget ran out. Story after story, life after life, all changed by Charlotte's work. Work that had been forgotten by many, but not by those it had touched. "I don't understand," Charlotte said at one point, her voice soft. "How do you all remember? It's been so long." Dr. Reeves smiled gently. "Charlotte, you don't forget the people who save you. You just don't." Another woman nodded. "My son was headed down a bad path. Gangs, drugs. Your program gave him something else to focus on. Something to hope for." She wiped her eyes. "He's a teacher now," she said. "Teaching kids in the same neighborhood he grew up in. Because someone showed him there was another way." Charlotte's hand went to the necklace at her throat. Her mother's necklace. The stone her mother had given her for strength. "I thought I'd lost everything," Charlotte whispered. "I thought it was all for nothing." "Nothing is ever for nothing," Richard said. "Not when it changes lives. Not when it gives people hope." He leaned forward. "Charlotte, I meant what I said years ago. If you ever want to rebuild, I'll help. A lot of us will." "I don't have anything," Charlotte said. "No money, no resources, no credibility." "You have your name," Dr. Reeves said firmly. "And in this city, the name Monroe still means something." Charlotte looked around at the faces surrounding her. People who remembered, people who hadn't forgotten, people who still believed. "I don't know if I can do it again," she admitted. "You don't have to decide tonight," Richard said. "But think about it. Please." Charlotte nodded slowly. Across the room, Vivian sat at the head table, picking at her food, barely eating. Benjamin had disappeared somewhere, probably networking, probably trying to salvage what he could of the evening. Her bridesmaids had scattered, uncomfortable with the tension, with the way the wedding had become about someone else. Vivian sat alone, in her beautiful white dress, at her perfect wedding, feeling more isolated than she'd ever felt in her life. One of the older guests, a woman Vivian didn't know well, approached her table. "Vivian, dear," the woman said, "congratulations on your marriage." "Thank you," Vivian said automatically. The woman hesitated, then leaned in closer. "May I offer you some advice?" Vivian didn't want advice, but she nodded anyway. "The people you step on while climbing?" the woman said quietly. "Sometimes they're the same people who built the ladder you're standing on." She patted Vivian's hand. "Something to remember," she said, and walked away. Vivian sat there, the words sinking in like stones. She looked across the room at Charlotte, surrounded by people, smiling, laughing, being celebrated. And Vivian finally understood. She hadn't just invited the janitor to her wedding. She'd invited someone who mattered, someone who'd always mattered, someone whose value had nothing to do with her job title or her bank account. And in trying to make Charlotte feel small, Vivian had only revealed how small she herself was. Charlotte left the reception at 9 o'clock. Not with drama, not with a grand exit or a final speech. She simply stood, said her goodbyes to the people who mattered, exchanged contact information with Richard and Dr. Reeves and several others who wanted to talk about possibilities. Then she walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for her, not because they pitied her, not because they felt sorry for her, because they respected her. As she passed Vivian's table, Charlotte paused. Vivian looked up, her eyes red, her face pale. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Charlotte spoke. Her voice was quiet, calm, not angry, not bitter. "I hope you have a good marriage," Charlotte said simply. "I hope you build something real, something that matters." She paused. "And I hope you learn to see people, all people, not just the ones you think are important." Vivian's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Charlotte nodded slowly. "I know," she said. Then she walked away, out of the Sterling Rose estate, into the cool night air, where Simone was waiting by the car, leaning against the door, scrolling through her phone. When she saw Charlotte, she looked up and smiled. "How'd it go?" Charlotte reached the car and leaned against it beside her friend. She looked up at the stars. "They remembered," she said softly. Simone's smile widened. "Good. So what now?" Charlotte was quiet for a long moment. "Now," she said slowly, "I figure out what comes next. Rebuilding the foundation? Maybe." Charlotte pulled the necklace from beneath her dress, looking at the black stone in the moonlight. But not the same way, not trying to recreate what was. She looked at Simone. "Something new," she said. "Something better. Something that can't be taken away so easily." Simone nodded. "That sounds like a yes to me." Charlotte laughed. A real, genuine laugh. "Give me a week to think about it." "Fair enough." Simone opened the car door. "But Charlotte..." "Yeah. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. All the way." Charlotte reached over and squeezed her friend's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." They got into the car and drove away from the estate, the lights fading behind them, the wedding disappearing into the night. But Charlotte didn't look back. She looked forward, at the city stretching out before her, at the possibilities waiting, at the future she was finally ready to claim. 3 weeks later, Charlotte walked into Belmont Tower for her shift. Same navy scrubs, same yellow cart, same elevator to the 14th floor. But everything was different. People noticed her now. "Good evening, Charlotte," the security guard said warmly. "Ms. Monroe, how are you?" Someone called from the lobby. "Charlotte, do you have a moment?" An executive stopped her in the hallway. She was no longer invisible. Word had spread, not just about the wedding, about who she was, what she'd done, what she'd survived. Benjamin Cross appeared in the hallway as she was emptying a trash bin. He stopped when he saw her. "Ms. Monroe," he said carefully, "you're still working here?" Charlotte looked up, smiled slightly. "I am," she said simply. "After everything that happened, I thought..." "You thought I'd quit?" Charlotte finished for him. Benjamin looked uncomfortable. "Yes." Charlotte straightened up, met his eyes. "Why would I quit?" she asked. "This is honest work. Good work. Work that taught me something important." "What did it teach you?" Charlotte picked up her cart. "It taught me that dignity isn't about what you do," she said. "It's about how you show up, how you treat people, how you carry yourself when no one's watching." She started pushing her cart down the hallway. Then she stopped and looked back. "I may rebuild my foundation," she said. "I may do something else entirely. But whatever I do, I won't forget what I learned here. Who I was when I thought I was nobody." Benjamin nodded slowly. "For what it's worth," he said. "I'm glad you came to the wedding." Charlotte smiled. "So am I," she said. And she meant it. Because that wedding had given her something she didn't know she'd lost. Not revenge. Not vindication. But herself. The reminder that Charlotte Monroe had never really disappeared. She'd just been waiting. And now she was ready. Ready to stand up. Ready to speak up. Ready to rebuild. On her own terms. In her own time. As herself. Charlotte Monroe. Founder. Fighter. Survivor. And nobody's joke. If you believe in stories about resilience, dignity, and the power of never forgetting who you are, hit that subscribe button, like and share to your friends and family, and comment where you're watching from. We're bringing you more powerful journeys of people who refuse to stay down. Don't miss what's coming next.